My name is Terry Dalton, and most recently I accompanied our pastor to Southeast Asia on a mission trip.
My name is John Rosa, and I just recently had the opportunity to go to Southeast Asia on a mission trip with the First Baptist Kettering.
I really didn't. God decided for me. God, I can distinctly remember sitting in church one Sunday thinking, oh, I am not going there. That is too far away. I am not going on that mission trip, Lord. And the next Sunday, God spoke to my heart and said, you're going. You're going. You're going to go. And God has spoke to my heart several times in mission work and said, you're going. You're going for 7 weeks to Africa. You're going. So God has many times spoke to my heart. And every single time I've chose to go on mission or thought I wasn't going on mission, God has kind of changed my mind.
My wife and I were in church together on a Sunday morning when Chad announced that he was going to be doing a mission trip to Southeast Asia. And in my mind, I was immediately thinking, boy, that might be something I'd be interested in doing, especially since I was going to be retiring soon. And so my wife turned to me and she said almost immediately, I think you should go on this trip. So we started praying about it, and it was shortly thereafter, then I went ahead and signed up.
Preparation. I did do some preparation for the trip. I read the book. The pastor had advised that we read a book that focused on the culture a bit.
And we conducted a couple of teams meetings with the missionary that was there on site and telling us what we would be doing and anticipating to be doing.
We connected and maintained relationships and helped solidify relationships that the IMB missionary had already established with either college students or young professionals, or even some of the college professors even. So really we're blessed with opportunities to interact with the students and the young professionals. And it's my understanding that the students are asking where we are now.
So when we were in Southeast Asia, one of the things that we did was walk the streets, and especially in some of the parks, meeting some people and having some opportunities to have some conversation. Normally we were handing a pamphlet to them to ask them to come to an English club of which we were conducting. Sometimes they would ask who we were, where we're from, very eager to speak English to us, especially the young people. The older people, not so much. So the younger the person was, I would say 40 below, would engage with you and carry on some conversation. But the conversations would start very casual normally, and very soon, they would want to know things about you, and so we would just tell them a little bit about us, and so talk about going to church, talk about family, talk about those kind of things, and that got us into some of the conversations to not really get into too deep, because if you're on the street, you're not going to get into too deep of a conversation with them, but at least to get them to talk to you, to want to maybe come and find out more about who you are and what you're doing and what the English Club is all about.
Well, I can give you a perfect example because I got to do this one day at the Young Professionals coffee shop. We were speaking English and talking, and she asked about the 5 of us who were traveling together from the United States. And she could not understand why 5 people not related and not married were traveling together, because it was, we weren't married to each other, but there were 5 people from our church that went. So I told her, I said, we all attend the same church. We are friends and we attend the same church. And to my surprise, she replied she didn't know what a church was. And so I jumped in and explained to her that a church was a gathering, a community of people who worship in Jesus Christ. And so that was my segue into sharing the gospel with her that night. And then she also heard it a little while later too from another person.
One of the first things that we encountered was a young guy, and his name was Carl, and so he was in my group, and we were talking, and we were talking about religion, and we were talking about faith in Jesus, and so on, and we were talking about the Chaldai religion, and he said that he had recently accepted Jesus to be his Lord and Savior. But he could not be baptized yet because he was afraid that if he was baptized, then his father would reject him. And so their religion is an ancestry worship religion. And so we witnessed outside of a Buddhist temple, I guess it was, people burning fake money, burning houses like a playhouse and things, and giving this to their family to take care of them in the afterlife. And so this ancestry worship is a real big thing for them, and it's probably one of the hardest things to overcome to become a Christian in that area, because if you do become a Christian, you probably are going to lose your family in the results of doing that. And that's a tough thing for people to deal with.
The impact of missions on my life are phenomenal. We went to a gorgeous country. We met beautiful people. We ate wonderful food. None of us really got sick. we had a wonderful time, but we were also felt God's presence in everything we did. You feel a great need for God there. These people have they have temples. They have nothing that the little girl didn't even know what church was. So they have no background, no foundation of anything in their culture that leans them toward Christ. So unless we go and share Christ, these people are not going to be exposed to Christ because there is no government support of that in their country.
Yeah, so encouragement that I would have of people to go is go and see how God moves. It's really interesting because from the very beginning of this trip, before the planning of it, God moves in really ways that I didn't see it until almost the day that was over with, that I really realized it wasn't me, it was God. So I had planned on coming home. The group was going to stay a little bit longer to go to north part of the country, and I had decided to come home at the end of the trip. So I was coming home 3 days earlier. But what I didn't realize was that time was necessary because my father-in-law was in the process of passing away. And so had I been on that trip, I would have missed it, and I would have had to come home in an emergency situation. So God knew from the beginning that I was going to go on that trip. He also knew that he wanted me to be back at a certain time. And so as many times as I wanted to change that, I didn't change it. So the temptation was there to change that multiple times, and I didn't. And so as it turned out, it was God's intervention to feel that and to see that. I think you see that a little bit more when you go on a mission trip like this, because God's there, he's real. And we just got to take time and listen to him and try not to intervene. And that's a tough thing to do sometimes.